She said it loud enough for the whole room to hear. "We'll need a bigger chair if you keep snacking like that." Laughter flickered around the conference table, then died when I didn't laugh with them. My hands shook so hard my coffee cup clinked against the polished wood. I stared at the presentation slide I had built overnight, feeling my throat burn with shame and anger. My name is Maya, and I'm 28 weeks pregnant with my first child. Before that moment, I thought I was doing everything right. I showed up early, stayed late, and delivered results that made our clients happy. But Monica, my manager, had been making comments for weeks. Little digs about my eating habits, jokes about my glow that felt more like insults, suggestions that maybe I should consider working from home more often. That morning was different, though. She crossed a line in front of the entire marketing team, and something inside me snapped, not into pieces, but into focus. I decided right then that I would document everything. Every word, every witness, every cruel joke. I didn't know yet what I would do with it all, but I knew silence wasn't protecting me anymore. It was protecting her. I glanced around the table at my coworkers' uncomfortable faces, their eyes darting away from mine. They knew what she'd said was wrong, but nobody would say it out loud. In the bathroom stall 10 minutes later, I whispered to the ceiling, "Please just let the baby be okay," and swallowed down another wave of nausea. My hands pressed against my belly, feeling for movement. The baby kicked once, twice, like a tiny reminder that I wasn't alone in this fight. Someone washed their hands at the sink and left without saying a word. I knew they'd heard Monica's comment. Everyone had. But nobody spoke up, and that silence felt like a second betrayal. I stared at my reflection in the bathroom mirror afterward. Puffy eyes from lack of sleep, swollen fingers that barely fit my wedding ring anymore. A person who used to fire back witty comebacks without hesitation. When did I become so quiet? When did I start accepting cruelty as normal workplace banter? I dried my hands slowly, straightening my shoulders. The next time Monica tried to humiliate me, I wouldn't just sit there. I would be ready. I would be smart about it. And I would make sure there was a record of everything she said. My reflection looked tired but determined. I touched my belly again, feeling another small kick. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about showing my child what it meant to stand up for yourself, even when you were scared. Back at my desk, I opened a new document and typed out exactly what Monica said in the meeting. I included the date, the time, and everyone who was present. Then I took a screenshot of the meeting invitation showing all the attendees. I saved the notes Monica had typed in the shared document during the presentation. I created a new folder on my phone and labeled it Nursery Ideas, thinking nobody would look twice at a pregnant woman researching baby furniture. But inside that folder, I started saving screenshots, voice memos, and recordings of team calls. Every cruel joke Monica made was another piece of evidence. Every dismissive comment was another nail. I wasn't sure yet what I was building. A shield to protect myself? A hammer to fight back? Maybe both. All I knew was that I needed proof. I needed documentation. Because I'd heard too many stories about women who spoke up and weren't believed. Women who were told they were too sensitive or misunderstood the joke. I wasn't going to be one of those women. Not anymore. My fingers moved across the keyboard with purpose, organizing everything into careful categories. I created subfolders for emails, recordings, and witness lists. Each file got a timestamp and a brief description. It felt clinical, almost cold. But that distance helped me stay focused instead of breaking down. 2 weeks later, I brought my evidence to HR. I had printed out 14 separate incidents, each with dates, times, and witness names. I sat across from Renee, the HR manager, and slid the folder across her desk. My hands trembled slightly as I explained the pattern of harassment. Renee glanced through my notes, her expression blank and professional. She paused on one page, then looked up at me with what I can only describe as practiced sympathy. "I'm sure Monica didn't mean it like that," she said carefully. "She's been under a lot of stress lately with the department reorganization." I felt the floor tilt beneath me. I had documentation. I had witnesses. I had proof of a pattern spanning weeks. And still, I was being dismissed. The response was worse than Monica's comments because it came wrapped in politeness. It made me feel crazy for even bringing it up. I smiled tightly and thanked Renee for her time. But as I walked back to my desk, I made a decision. Next time, I would bring more than notes. I would bring something HR couldn't ignore. My heart pounded in my chest as I walked down the hallway, past coworkers who had no idea what just happened. I felt invisible in that moment, like my pain and documentation meant nothing. But that feeling turned quickly into determination. If they wouldn't listen to my words, I'd make them listen to something else. That same afternoon, a major client sent an email praising my strategy deck. The subject line read, "Best pitch we've seen this quarter." The client specifically mentioned my research and creative approach. I felt a surge of validation reading those words. At least someone appreciated my work. But 2 hours later, when I went to check the shared folder, the entire email thread had vanished. Just gone. I searched through my trash, through the archive, through every subfolder I could think of. Nothing. Then I remembered I had set up auto-forwarding to my personal email months ago as a backup habit. I logged into my home account and found the thread intact. I forwarded it to myself again, this time with a timestamp note. Then I checked the shared folder's edit history. Only 3 people had admin rights to delete content. Monica, our director, and IT. I knew who was responsible. I wasn't paranoid. I was paying attention, and that attention was about to save me. I sat there staring at my screen, feeling my stomach twist with anger. This wasn't just about comments anymore. Monica was actively trying to erase proof of my success. She was rewriting the story of who did what work. But she didn't know about my backup systems. She didn't know I'd been careful. That mistake would cost her later. The all-hands meeting happened on a Friday afternoon. The whole company gathered in the main conference room, and Monica was presenting our team's quarterly results. She clicked through slides, taking credit for campaigns I had led. Then she made another joke. "We're also updating our dress code policy," she said with a smirk, "to allow for more elasticity." Her eyes flicked toward me. A few people laughed nervously. I felt my face heat up, but this time I didn't stay silent. "Let's keep the focus on the work," I said clearly, loud enough for everyone to hear. My voice didn't shake. A few heads turned toward me like I'd broken some unspoken rule. Monica's smile went thin and tight. Her eyes narrowed slightly. For the first time since this all started, I saw something flicker in her expression. Worry, maybe, or calculation. She quickly moved to the next slide, but the moment hung in the air. After the meeting, I went straight to my desk and wrote down everything. The comment, the time, the room full of witnesses, and that flash of concern in Monica's eyes. People filed past my desk afterward, and a few gave me small nods of support. Nobody said anything out loud, but I felt the shift. I challenged her publicly, and she knew it. More importantly, everyone else saw it happen. The power balance was starting to change. That evening, my phone buzzed with a message from Priya, a colleague on another team. "I heard what happened today," she wrote. "I'm sorry. If you file a formal complaint, I'll back you up." She said something similar to me last year. My heart jumped. I wasn't alone. I messaged back immediately, asking if she remembered specific dates and details. Within an hour, Jonah from accounting stopped by my desk with a cup of ginger tea. "She made a comment about Anna last year too," he whispered. "If you need dates, I can check old calendar invites." People started coming forward quietly, carefully. They handed me pieces of information like breadcrumbs, a screenshot here, a remembered conversation there. Each person had their own story of Monica's cruelty, but nobody had felt strong enough to fight back alone. I realized something important that night. Breadcrumbs could make a trail, and a trail could lead somewhere. I created a new document titled Witness Statements and began organizing everything. Names, dates, incidents. A pattern was emerging, and it was bigger than just me. I sat at my kitchen table past midnight, carefully typing out each person's story. My husband brought me tea and squeezed my shoulder gently. "You're doing the right thing," he said quietly. I hoped he was right. The evidence was building into something undeniable. Over the weekend, I pulled my performance metrics from the last 3 months. Client satisfaction scores, campaign completion rates, revenue generated. I made graphs comparing my numbers to Monica's team targets. Even while dealing with morning sickness, exhaustion, and swollen ankles, I was still leading the team in deliverables. The data told a clear story. My performance hadn't dropped. If anything, it had improved. I was closing deals faster, getting better client feedback, and managing more projects than anyone else on the team. Yet Monica's comments had become more frequent and more vicious as my numbers went up. I sat back and stared at the charts on my laptop screen. The pattern was obvious. The better I performed, the meaner Monica became. It wasn't about my work quality. It wasn't about my pregnancy affecting my productivity. It was about something else entirely. Control, maybe, or insecurity. That pattern would tell its own story to anyone who looked at it objectively. I saved the graphs and added them to my evidence folder. Numbers don't lie, and these numbers were about to become very important. I printed out 3 copies of the performance data, highlighting the key metrics with a yellow marker. 1 copy went into my work bag, 1 stayed in my home office, and 1 got emailed to my personal account with a timestamp. I was learning to protect everything multiple ways. During a late afternoon video call the following Tuesday, Monica made another comment. The meeting was about a client pitch, and I had been sharing my screen to walk through the presentation. Halfway through, I paused to catch my breath. Pregnancy had made even talking exhausting sometimes. "Try looking less winded," Monica said, her voice dripping with contempt. "It's distracting for the client." I kept my face neutral and continued the presentation, but my heart was pounding. What Monica didn't realize was that she'd forgotten to stop the meeting recording before making that comment. The video conferencing software automatically saved recordings to the company's cloud storage. After the call ended, I immediately downloaded the file to my personal computer before anyone could delete it. I watched it twice, listening to the casual cruelty in her tone. The comment came through crystal clear. That night, I didn't sleep well. But for the first time in weeks, I wasn't crying into my pillow. I was planning. That recording was evidence nobody could deny or explain away. I lay in bed next to my sleeping husband, staring at the ceiling and running through possible scenarios. The recording changed everything. It wasn't hearsay or my interpretation of events. It was her actual voice saying those actual words. I felt a strange mix of anger and relief wash over me. She'd finally made a mistake I could prove. My OB appointment the next morning confirmed my worst fears. The stress was affecting my blood pressure. The doctor used words like high-risk pregnancy and minimize stressors. She wrote a simple letter on her official letterhead. Patient requires accommodation for rest periods and stress reduction due to pregnancy complications. I scanned the letter as soon as I got home and emailed it to HR, copying myself on my personal account. I printed 2 copies. 1 for my work bag, 1 for my home files. I felt like I was preparing for battle, because in a way I was. Monica's response came within an hour. She called me dramatic in a team chat and immediately assigned me to a last-minute client emergency. The project needed a full presentation by tomorrow morning, requiring at least 10 hours of work. I didn't argue. I didn't push back. I simply forwarded her message to my evidence folder and got to work. But I worked smart. I delegated pieces to team members who volunteered to help. I set strict boundaries on my hours, and I documented every single exchange. I sent calendar invites for every delegation meeting, keeping clear records of who agreed to help with what. I saved every thank you message from teammates offering support. Monica thought she was punishing me with impossible deadlines, but she was actually helping me build a case for retaliation. Each unreasonable demand became another piece of evidence. The campaign I'd spent 3 weeks developing went live on Thursday morning. I watched the announcement from my desk, feeling a mix of pride and anger. Monica's name was listed as the lead strategist. Mine was nowhere to be found. Clients started sending congratulations to Monica directly. "Brilliant insights," one wrote. "Best work your team has done," said another. Each email felt like a knife. I had built that campaign from scratch. The research, the creative concept, the execution plan, all mine. But I didn't explode. I didn't send angry emails. Instead, I replied to each client with professional grace. "So glad you love the approach," I wrote. "I've attached my original draft and research notes for your reference." I copied the project sponsor and our department head on every reply. The paper trail was growing. The emails made it clear who had done the actual work, and I started hearing whispers around the office. Subtle questions, Raised eyebrows. The first tiny crack appeared in Monica's carefully constructed wall of lies. By lunchtime, 3 different people had forwarded me the client responses with wide-eyed emojis. "Did you really build all of this?" one coworker asked in a private message. I replied with a simple yes and links to my timestamped drafts. The truth was spreading faster than Monica could control it. That weekend, I created a master spreadsheet. Column A, date. Column B, incident description. Column C, exact quote. Column D, witnesses present. Column E, supporting documentation. Each row represented a moment of harassment, and the list had grown to over 30 entries. It looked clinical and cold on the screen, but each row felt like a heartbeat. Each entry represented a moment I'd been diminished, dismissed, or humiliated. Priya sent me 2 more incidents from her own experience with Monica. Jonah added a timestamp from a call I'd forgotten about entirely. The pattern wasn't just in my head anymore. It was there in black and white, organized and undeniable. This wasn't about one bad day or a misunderstood joke. This was systematic. This was targeted. And now I had proof that could stand up to any scrutiny. I saved the file with a boring name, Q2 Budget Review, so nobody would look twice if they saw it on my screen. But inside, it was my weapon. I added a 6th column for emotional impact, rating each incident on a scale of minor to severe. The pattern showed escalation over time. What started as small comments had grown into aggressive retaliation. Any investigator would see it immediately. I backed up the file in 3 places and password-protected each copy. On Monday, I booked 15 minutes on the calendar of Martin, a vice president known for his blunt fairness. I'd never spoken to him directly before, but I'd heard he didn't tolerate nonsense. My hands shook slightly as I walked into his office. "I'm not asking for special treatment," I said, sliding my laptop across his desk. "I'm asking for oxygen." I showed him my performance metrics first, the graphs that proved my value. Then I played just one recording. Monica's comment about me looking winded and distracting. Martin's expression didn't change much, but I saw his jaw tighten. He listened to the full clip, then asked me to send him the link to my evidence folder. "Take care of yourself this week," he said quietly. "Don't do anything rash. Let me look into this." It wasn't a promise. It wasn't a guarantee. But it was more than HR had given me. I left his office feeling something I hadn't felt in months: hope. As I walked back to my desk, I noticed Martin was already typing on his computer, his expressions serious and focused. He'd asked for the folder link, and I'd sent it before leaving his office. I knew he was looking through it right then. For the first time, someone with actual power was paying attention. Someone who could make real changes was finally listening. 2 days later, I received a notification that Monica had logged a formal performance concern about me in the HR system. My stomach dropped when I read it. Missed deadlines, reduced energy, lack of engagement with team. She hadn't attached any evidence. No emails showing missed deadlines, no client complaints, nothing. Just her words claiming I was failing. I felt panic rising in my chest. This was retaliation. She knew I'd gone to Martin, and now she was trying to build a case against me first. But then I remembered my own documentation. I logged into the same HR system and uploaded my delivery receipts, client praise emails, and completed project logs to the case file. Every claim she made, I countered with proof. The contradiction wasn't subtle. Anyone reviewing the case would see it immediately. I didn't need subtlety anymore. I needed clarity, and my evidence provided exactly that. I spent 2 hours that evening carefully uploading documents and writing clear, unemotional summaries of each piece of evidence. I made sure every file had a descriptive name and relevant date. I organized everything chronologically so the pattern would be impossible to miss. My hands were steady as I worked. Monica had made a critical mistake by putting her lies in writing. Now there was an official record of her retaliation. Monica tried to trap me the next week. She assigned me a massive project with an overnight deadline, the kind of timeline that would force me to choose between my health and my job. She probably expected me to fail, or to complain, or to push back in a way she could document as insubordination. Instead, I chose both. I worked smart, not desperate. I delegated portions to team members who'd offered to help. I set firm boundaries on my hours, stopping at 6 p.m. to rest. I made sure everything was documented in the project management system. The work shipped on time and met every requirement. The next morning, Monica tried to scold me in a team chat for involving others without approval. I responded calmly and professionally. The project shipped on time and within scope. Here's the handoff thread showing the delegation strategy. All stakeholders were informed. Her message cursor blinked for several seconds, then went still. She didn't respond. I'd beaten her at her own game. The entire team saw the exchange in the chat. 3 people sent me private messages congratulating me on handling it so professionally. One teammate wrote, "That was perfect. She can't touch you now." I saved screenshots of all the supportive messages. They showed that my coworkers recognized what was happening and were starting to speak up, even privately. Monica's control was slipping, and everyone could see it. 2 interns stopped me by the elevator later that week. They were young, maybe 22, both nervous. "We didn't know we could push back like that," one of them said quietly. "We thought we just had to accept it when managers were mean." My heart broke a little. They thought workplace abuse was normal. They thought cruelty was just part of paying your dues. I looked at both of them and said firmly, "Your work matters. So do you. Don't let anyone make you feel small." Later that afternoon, one of the interns slipped me a screenshot. It was from a group chat I wasn't part of, a conversation between Monica and some team leads. The message read, "Maya's really letting herself go. Must be nice to have an excuse to be lazy." The screenshot was dated 2 days ago. It was ugly and undeniable. The kind of evidence that couldn't be explained away as a misunderstanding or a joke taken wrong. I added it to my folder and felt the case solidify around me like armor. Monica's next move was clumsy. She sent a calendar invite titled "Coaching Session, Maya," with no agenda and no HR representative included. The meeting was scheduled for Friday afternoon in a small conference room, just the 2 of us. I replied to the invite within minutes. "Happy to meet," I wrote. "I'll be looping in Renee from HR and recording the session for my notes, as is my right per company policy." I attached the relevant section from the employee handbook. The invite disappeared from my calendar an hour later, canceled with no. When Friday came, Monica didn't show up to work at all. She called in sick. I took a screenshot of the canceled meeting and the no-show, adding it to my timeline. Even her absence told a story. I worked through the day feeling lighter somehow. She was scared, and scared people make mistakes. Late that night, I couldn't sleep. The baby was kicking up a storm, and I found myself scrolling through old documents on my laptop. That's when I discovered something that made my blood run cold. Monica had edited my performance review summary weeks ago using tracked changes. I could see every modification she'd made. Subtle verb changes that transformed wins into assists, leadership into participation. Maya spearheaded the campaign became Maya participated in the campaign development. Exceeded targets became met expectations with team support. She was rewriting my accomplishments, erasing my contributions, building a false narrative that I'd been underperforming all along. I saved both versions, the original and her edited one, with timestamps showing exactly when she'd made the changes. This wasn't about pregnancy jokes anymore. This was about systematically destroying my professional reputation. I realized my case was bigger than one cruel manager. This was career sabotage. I spent Sunday afternoon composing a careful message on LinkedIn. I reached out to Anna, the woman Jonah had mentioned, someone who'd left the company months ago. I kept it simple. "Hi Anna, I work on Monica's team. Would you be open to a brief conversation?" Her response came within an hour. "I wondered when someone would reach out," she wrote. She sent me a folder of her own documentation, screenshots, emails, recorded comments, the same pattern, the same targeting, the same shame-based harassment. Anna had been pregnant too when Monica started her campaign. She'd left because she was too exhausted to fight. "I regret not speaking up," she wrote. "If you're building a case, I'll help however I can." I stared at her evidence, feeling both validated and heartbroken. Monica had done this before. She had a pattern, and now I had proof that it wasn't personal, it was predatory. Monday morning brought an unexpected email. Our biggest client, Westfield Industries, had sent a meeting request. The subject line read, "Q3 Renewal Strategy Session." But the body of the email made my heart race. We'd like Maya to lead this discussion, as she built our original strategy and understands our goals better than anyone. They'd requested me by name, not Monica, not the team, me specifically. I forwarded the email to HR and copied Martin. This wasn't just validation, this was leverage. The client wanted me, and their account was worth millions. Within 2 hours, I received a response from HR. The tone had completely changed. "We are opening a formal investigation effective immediately," Renee wrote. "Monica will be temporarily reassigned while we review the matter. Please continue documenting any concerns." The wind had shifted. The entire building felt different. I walked through the office that afternoon and felt people's eyes on me. Not with pity anymore, but with something else. Respect, maybe. The company town hall happened Wednesday afternoon. Monica was scheduled to present our team's campaign roadmap for the next quarter. I sat in the back of the room, quietly watching as she clicked through slides. Then something unexpected happened. She advanced to a slide showcasing her creative concept, and the file name appeared at the bottom of the screen. Maya Strategy Final v3.docx, with my initials and a timestamp from 2 months ago. The slide stayed up for 5 full seconds before Monica noticed. The chat window lit up with comments. "Wait, whose file is that? Is that Maya's work? Why is Monica presenting Maya's strategy?" She stumbled over her words, clicking frantically to the next slide. Her face went pale. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. The evidence spoke for itself. People were paying attention now. The whispers started immediately, spreading through the room like wildfire. Monica finished her presentation 10 minutes early and left quickly. I stayed in my seat, calm and quiet. The next morning, Renee asked to speak with me privately. "Off the record," she said carefully. But I kept my phone recording in my pocket anyway. Nothing was truly off the record anymore. She explained that the complaint had been escalated to compliance because of retaliation risk indicators. They'd found Monica's edited performance reviews. They'd interviewed witnesses. They'd reviewed the recordings and screenshots. "We need everything you have," Renee said quietly. I sent them my entire folder. Every document, every timestamp, every witness statement. It was organized, dated, and calm. My hand still shook slightly as I hit send, but not from fear. From relief. From the knowledge that I'd done everything right. The investigation was real now, and I'd given them everything they needed. Over the next week, witnesses were interviewed one by one. Priya went in first, then Jonah, then the 2 interns. I saw each of them emerge from the HR office looking drained but determined. Some met my eyes with apologetic looks. Others smiled slightly, as if to say, "We did the right thing." Anna flew in from her new city to give a formal statement. She spent 3 hours in the conference room with compliance officers, walking them through her own documentation. When she came out, she hugged me tightly. "Thank you for finishing what I couldn't," she whispered. By Friday evening, I received an email from compliance. "We may need to temporarily restrict Monica's access during the final review phase." The words were careful and corporate, but the meaning was clear. She was being isolated. The walls were closing in. I sat in my car in the parking garage and finally let myself cry. Not because I was broken or defeated, but because I'd survived. The baby kicked against my ribs, strong and insistent. On Monday morning, Monica's badge stopped working. I heard about it through the office grapevine. She'd tried to enter the building and couldn't get through security. An internal memo went out an hour later. "Leadership transition effective immediately. Monica will be pursuing other opportunities." No details, no explanation, no spectacle, just her absence. The office buzzed with whispers and speculation, but work continued. I opened my new laptop. They'd given me a replacement after the investigation started, and it didn't feel haunted anymore. I cleared out my evidence folder, backing everything up one final time. Then I archived it. I didn't need to look at it anymore. The weight I'd been carrying for months lifted slightly. There was still work to do. Still healing to happen. But the shadow that had been following me was finally gone. 2 weeks later, Martin called me into a small conference room with windows facing the city skyline. "2 things," he said, sitting across from me. "First, thank you for your professionalism under extremely difficult circumstances. You handled this with more grace than anyone should have to." He paused, sliding a folder across the table. "Second, Westfield wants you to lead their renewal strategy. We'd like to adjust your title to senior strategist and your compensation to match the work you've already been doing. I thought about the baby's heartbeat on the ultrasound screen, steady and brave. I thought about every woman who'd been told she was too sensitive, every person who'd been made to feel small. I walked out of that office lighter than I'd felt in months. I sent quiet thank you messages to everyone who'd spoken up. Then I closed my documentation log for the last time. The story wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming my name, my work, and my dignity. It was about teaching my child that when someone tries to shrink you, you stand taller. Not louder, just taller.